Humans. These are regular people using normal tools like bow and arrows, swords, guns, slingshots, hammers, axes, even animals. These tools are essential to the humans in the Clash universe because they don't have powers. They fight in the arenas or villages much like we would, and the equipment defines who they are. For example, barbarians are so attached to their swords that losing them causes an identity crisis, which is why when they're forced to wield axes instead, they're so upset. We also see how their skill and personalities shape their roles. Archers who got bored became firecrackers, and seasoned royal recruits eventually earned that armor and mace of a dark prince. It is also almost exclusively the humans who have professional lives outside of battle. Builders are construction workers, miners work in the mines, the recruits are the king's sidemen, and the musketeer is a bounty hunter. Whether they're going to school to become a Valkyrie, archer, or a knight, or spending their free time fishing, hunting, cooking, humans in the Clash universe are just like me and you. Superhumans. These are basically humans, but with abilities that surpass normal human limits, like heroes, the Golden Knight, and the Mega Knight to name a few. How exactly most superhumans got their abilities is largely a mystery. For example, the Mega Knight is just a regular knight under different armor that somehow gained destructive power. However, we do know a couple origins. For instance, the Barbarian King was once a regular barbarian who consumed dark elixir, and that's how he grew in strength and size. And the monk spent years in isolation perfecting this new style of combat through meditation. Others, like the Electro Titan, seem to have been a result of a freak accident. You know, the Electro Titan can't even control her energy, which is why it spills out of her as she walks. So basically, superhumans are regular humans who consume dark elixir, went through intense training, or by pure chance gain extraordinary abilities. Trolls. There are actually not a lot of trolls in the Clash universe. In fact, at one point, the bowler was the only one of its kind until the thrower appeared in the village. Trolls are unique because they love to play sports. We see them doing things like bowling, javelin throwing, and even basketball. And this is basically what they do in battles and in the arena. They apply their athletic experience to destroy enemies and defenses. Beyond their love for sports though, not much is known about them. We do know, however, that the bowler in particular is obsessed with drinking dark elixir, so perhaps that gives him the strength to throw those big boulders? Who knows? Goblins. Goblins love gold, or really anything that is worth something. They actively find ways to steal resources even from their own villages. And in the arena where there's no gold to steal, they're only there because they were paid a lot of gold to do it. This is also the only reason why they help out in villages. They're being paid. But stealing and the love of precious resources is not the only thing they're good at. They're also inventors, so they're responsible for the creation of the goblin machine, goblin drill, goblin barrel, and even the rocket. They love to be in situations where they're in danger, so that's where all these goofy ideas come from. In terms of where they reside, they live deep in the jungles, where they sleep in huts, train, come up with crazy ideas, and build structures. The goblins are builders. There are many temples, villages, and monuments that are all over the Clash universe that are strictly off limits to anyone that isn't a goblin. So they usually capture or attack those who wander in. Like one time, a royal recruit was trying to deliver a scroll to the monk, but he was in goblin territory, so he was being chased by the goblins. But they did eventually get whooped by the monk. But anyway, the goblins are led by a goblin queen. However, in some regions, they follow a goblin king instead. But yeah, the goblin race is easily one of the largest in the Clash universe, with dozens of different subspecies and roles. Mystics. These are also typically humans, but with magical powers. Think wizards, witches, druids, and healers. A lot of them, specifically wizards and wardens, attend schools where they train to master their spells. And they even train one another. The wizards are actually responsible for most spells in the Clash universe. They are the ones who work at the spell factory, and every year they get together to show off new discoveries, which is where the void spell came from. Speaking of professions, they are also responsible for the laboratory, where elder wizards go to research ways to make troops and spells even stronger. But it's not just wizards. Witches are responsible for creating things like the shrink trap, which is a bottled up curse. That is the main role of witches, by the way. They don't just bring the dead back to life, they also curse other life forms. However, not all mystics are shooting fireballs or raising skeletons. We also have the healer, who plays a more of a support role in the battlefield, and the druid, who uses the power of nature to heal and shapeshift. All in all, mystics are those who utilize some form of magical power to aid their allies or destroy their enemies. Animals. So these are basically all the normal creatures we see throughout the Clash universe. Hogs, rams, reptiles, bats, yaks, ravens. Most of them prefer to be accompanied by other beings, mostly humans. They seem to have a bond. But there are a couple that ride solo and do their own thing. Much like regular humans, most animals don't have magical powers as well. Their roles are usually simple things like charging into defenses or serving as a mount to various riders. However, there are a couple that surpass normal animal behaviors, such as the electro owl and the spirit fox. Other than having small roles in battles, I mean, they're animals, and naturally some of them are kept as pets. For example, the Royal King has a few royal hogs of his own. Mechanical. I'm not really sure if anyone will consider this a race, but the Clash universe is filled with machines that often seem to think for themselves. Now, who controls a majority of them is kind of a mystery. For instance, we don't know if someone is driving the siege machines or Sparky. However, we do have some clues for others. All types of goblin drills are controlled by goblins. I mean, they invented it after all. And the builders are the masterminds behind most other machines. The flying machine is famously piloted by the master builder himself, and these Zappies are remotely controlled by him as well. Whether they are self-aware or just incredibly advanced inventions, one thing's for sure, the mechanical beings in the world play a massive role in the outcomes of battles. Giants. The giants of the Clash universe are essentially regular humans, just giant. They do not have magical powers. Instead, their primary weapons are their own two hands. We see this with the regular giant, the boxer, the super, and the electro giant. They are simply hitting things, though they do use tools to assist them, so most of them have brass knuckles or some contraption strapped to their backs. There's a couple that use other weapons, the Royal Giant with its huge cannon and the Rune Giant with a literal anvil. Just like barbarians, for example, many of the giants are also the same, just with different professions. The Super Giant is the cousin of the regular giant, and he's wearing a belt that he won from an annual eating contest. The Boxer Giant is a trained fighter, and the Royal Giant is described as just a giant with a fancy mustache. Outside of their massive size, they are very similar to humans in their behavior and personalities. Undead. In the Clash universe, the undead are primarily skeletons, with the rare exception of the Royal Ghost, the father of the Blue King who died in the arena long ago. Much like the Ghost, skeletons in this world are warriors from past battles being resummoned by a spell, the Witch, or the Skeleton King. Similar to goblins, there are also many different types of skeletons, each with totally different roles. Some fly balloons, others pilot these dragon machines, and some even hold professional positions as guards, acting as the king's personal security and palace watchmen. Skeletons can also be promoted or pursue new roles just like they did in their past lives. For example, balloon pilots are promoted wall breakers, and bombers are wall breakers who finally learn how to throw their bombs after being taught by the bowler. Other than that though, they are often portrayed as young and curious. You know, getting into trouble and doing things they shouldn't, sneaking out at bedtime to go party and not listening to their mom, which by the way is the Witch, and in some separate occasions the Skeleton Giant is said to be the father. Golems. These are primarily the rock creatures of the Clash universe. The regular golem, lava hound, mountain golem, meteor, lava golem, and a couple of them aren't exactly rocks, but are in fact still golems. It's unknown who exactly makes the golems or if they form themselves, but they all have one thing in common. Their composition is determined by the environment where they were created. For example, regular and mountain golems are made of regular rocks. Lava hounds and lava golems come from volcanoes. Meteors and elixir golems are from space. The elixir one was a elixir meteor apparently. And ice golems are from the frozen peaks. Another distinct feature of golems is that they do not talk. You'll see animals and creatures saying things, but golems only grumble and make golem sounds.
I'm sorry, what? I don't speak Gollum.
Aside from that, they're golems. They're typically slow, they have a lot of health, and almost all of them can break into smaller versions of themselves in battles. Minions. These are gargoyles, flying creatures that are almost always blue in color. There are a lot of different minions in the Clash universe. There's the regular minions, minions with armor, with rockets, heroes, even baby minions. And each of them serve their own unique roles in the battlefield. For example, the henchmen are the minion prince's bodyguards, and the mega minion is just a regular minion that stole armor from the royal armory. One thing they all have in common is that they're all made of dark elixir, and they all come from dark caves deep underground. This makes sense, as dark elixir is drilled from deep below the surface. Other than that though, minions are pretty mysterious creatures. Dragons. Another big race in the Clash universe. Dragons are mythical creatures that dominate the skies and come in all shapes and sizes. Regular dragons, electro, super, skeleton dragons, there's even a hero. There are also the babies, which seem to be a subspecies because they more or less do the same thing the regular dragons do, just on a smaller scale. Interestingly, they're not the kids of the bigger dragons like you'd expect. Instead, they have a papa dragon, which is a bigger version of this subspecies. Baby dragons are also kept as pets by humans. The regular dragons are too big, but the babies fit in homes, essentially acting as the dogs of the Clash universe. Spirits. There are many spirits in Clash, and each of them are based on elements or substances like electricity, fire, ice, healing, and nature. Yes, nature. The P.E.K.K.A. is actually controlled by a nature spirit that found the armor discarded outside the arena. This is why the P.E.K.K.A. loves butterflies. She's a nature spirit. And the P.E.K.K.A. isn't the only one. The furnace is also a being that was formed from fire spirits. I mean, it's literally a walking furnace. Now, where spirits actually come from is a mystery, but many likely come from spells, because we know that the heal spirit was formed after a bottle of heal spilled. Mythical Beast. These are creatures that originate from folklore, legends, and ancient mythology. And surprisingly, outside of other races we've already discussed like dragons, minions, and golems, there's not a lot. We have the Yeti, which is a massive creature from the frozen peaks right outside of Spell Valley. Then we have the Phoenix, which resides above the jungle near Hog Mountain. And finally, there's the Unicorn, whose background is a little unclear. However, we do know that outside of helping in battles, its horns act as a beacon at night for lost travelers. These mythical beasts serve wildly different roles and attacks and have no biological relation to each other, so yeah, this is just the ones that didn't fall into any particular race. But yeah, that is every race in the Clash universe explained. There are certainly some troops that I could not categorize. For example, the log. How would you even categorize that, right? It's just a tree infused with elixir. I don't know. Let me know where you would put it, or some other races that you would include that I didn't. But yeah, with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed. But hey, before you go, YouTube thinks you'll like this next video, so check it out. As always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!